Hey guys, it's Miss Buddha. This is the last video I'll be sending you of examples for the final exam. There are 15 total problems on it, and you should reference these notes that I'm going to talk through on the final so you can use the formulas that I have on the example slides. So let's go through one of each type that you're going to see on the final. The first question is find the area of a triangle. Be sure to include the correct unit in your answer. So the formula you need is over on the left-hand side in this box. Area equals 1/2 base times the height. So we need to use that formula for this question. Now the tricky part is what is the base and what is the height out of the three numbers they give you. So the height forms a right angle with the base. So you might think the base is 30 on this example, but it's actually not. Imagine rotating this around. So if I draw this with the right angle on the corner here, this is 18 and this would be 24. So your 24 is actually your height and the base is 18. So you're going to have area equals 1/2 times 18 times 24. So you could take half of 18, which is 9, and 9 times 24 is 216. So the area is 216, and the units for area are always squared. So 216 yards squared. The second one is the area of a parallelogram. Again, the formula is in the box here. Area equals base times height. And again, you have to be careful about the height. The height is this diagonal line that goes through the parallelogram. So the height here is 7, and the base would then be 12. So area equals base times height. You're going to have the base is 12, the height is 7, and if you multiply those, you get the area is 84. Again, you need inches squared. The third example is a probability question. So the probability, they want it as a fraction in simplest form. So anytime you have the probability questions, the bottom number is always the total amount. So if we're looking at this question, it's filled with 4 red, 8 blue, and 2 yellow. So that adds up to 14. At the top, you need to figure out the probability that it's red or yellow. So I have 4 red or 2 yellow. So if you add those together, you're going to get 6 out of 14. And when you reduce that, divide top and bottom by a 2, and you get 3/7 as your final answer. Now, the question you may get may be not specifically one color or the other, so just read carefully here. Next, you're going to have to graph a line. Now, notice it's in y equals mx plus b, but it's missing the b part. So that means it's plus 0, which means your first point is at the origin. So these go through the center, 0, 0. Then your slope is -3/1, and this is the rise and the run. So this means it's going to slant to the left for negative slopes. So from the origin, you're going to go up 3 and 1 to the left, or down 3 and 1 to the right. And then you would use the program to draw a straight line through that. The next question it graphs the line. Now you need the slope. So just let me remind you, a positive slope slants upward while a negative slope slants downward. So that makes a big difference. We want to go from point to point and use rise over run. So starting with this point, I have to jump 1, 2, 3. That would be the rise. The run to the left is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 is the run, and it's negative. So my final answer is a negative 3/5. If you could reduce it, you should. But if not, then just leave it as that fraction. Next up is two parallel lines cut by a transversal. We need to find the measure of, or the values of y and z. So first we should know that these two angles here are equal. Those are alternate exterior angles. And those are congruent or equal. So first I'm going to set an equation up that says 4z minus 57 equals 71. And I'm going to solve for z. So I'm going to add 57 to both sides. It's 128 equals 4z. Divide both sides by a 4, and z equals 32. And just check, 4 times 32 minus 57, does that give you 71? So 4 times 32 is 128. Subtract 57, and you do get 71. So z is 32, and then also you should know that these two angles make 180 degrees. So you need to write another equation that says 71 plus some value of y equals 180. Since we already found that that whole angle here had to be 71 degrees, we need to figure out what the other part is to add up to 180. So subtract 71. And you get 109 degrees for y. Next up, you have the sum of 4 angles in a quadrilateral equals 360 degrees. So if you know 3 angles already, you're going to add those 3 up. 120, 40, and 73. That adds up to 234. And then you're going to take 360, subtract 234 to figure out what's left for the remaining 4th angle, which is 126. So x equals 126. Next, you're going to have a right triangle, and you need to find the side length. So this is where you use Pythagorean theorem. Your right angle is here, and whatever's across from it, that's C. That is your hypotenuse. Okay, so you have to be careful of what you substitute in there. A and B are the legs, so C in this case is 11. We can call this A, and X up here is B. So A squared plus B squared equals C squared. C is 11. A we said was 6. We're solving for B. So 36 plus B squared equals 121. Subtract 36 from both sides. And you get that b squared is equal to 85. And then to unsquare something, you take the square root. And the directions say round to the 100th. So I'm going to take the square root of 85 on my calculator, press enter, and to the 100th would be about 9.22, because it said 219. So the 9 bumps the 100th digit up. And there's no units, so there's our answer for B. Next up is the midpoint formula. So if they give you two ordered pairs, you're going to label this as x1, y1, and x2, y2. And the midpoint formula states that you add your x's up and you divide by 2, and then you add your y's up and you divide by 2. So my x's were negative 8 plus 2. We're going to add those up, divide by 2. Our y's are 5 plus 1. We're going to add those and divide by 2. So you get negative 8 plus 4 is a negative 6. And 5 plus 1 is a positive 6. And if you divide this out, you end up getting negative 3, 3 as your midpoint. And you should double check that that kind of makes sense, right? C was over here at negative 8, so this is about negative 4. So negative 3 is about here. D went up to 1, and this is 5. So yeah, it looks like it's on point here. Next up, you have to name the sides of angle 1. So that's talking about this angle here that is made up of two rays. Ray QR, notice you have the endpoint first, and ray QT. So those must start with the vertex point. So name the vertex of SQT. And that is the middle letter, Q. Write two other names for RQS. So you could write it in reverse, SQR. You could also name it by angle 2. You can't say angle Q though, because there's two angles there, 1 and 2. But you do need to have the angle marks in between there. Or in front, sorry. All right, moving on here, we have that ABD. This whole angle adds up to 117. It tells you that the measure of angle 1 is 2 times the measure of angle 2. So let's call this x, and then this would be 2x. 2 times angle 2. We eventually need to find the measure of angle 2. So we're going to write an equation, because angle 1 plus angle 2 have to add up to 117. So angle 1 is 2x, angle 2 is x, and that adds to 117. This is like 3 x's equals 117. We're going to divide both sides by a 3. And we get 39 is x. So this is 39, and that's the one that we wanted to find. So angle 2 equals 39 degrees. If you want to check, the other one would be 2 times 39, which is 78. And if you, to check, add 78 plus 39, and it is 117. Okay, this one should be easy. Evaluate the expression when m is a -7. So replace the m's in parentheses with the -7. -7 squared, be careful if you type that in your calculator, make sure there's parentheses around it. It's a +49. Then you have a -28 minus 5. And then just type it into your calculator. You get 16 as your answer. All right, this one wants an equation, so you need an equal sign. A gym has yoga classes. Each class has 14 students in it. If there's C classes, write an equation to represent the total number of students S taking yoga. So the total usually goes at the one side, and each class has 14 students, so it would be 14 times C. 14 students in a class equals the total number S taking yoga. Find the value of X. So there are some markings that you should be aware of on this triangle. These two mean that these angles are the same measure. So this is also 26 degrees. We could find out what this third measure is by adding up 26 and 26, which is 52. Subtract it from 180. So this is 128 degrees. From there, we know that these two angles have to add to 180. So to get this measure, we're going to take 180 minus 128, which should be 52. So this angle is 52 degrees. These two sides are equal. So this means this side is also 52 degrees. And we want the third angle at the top. So it's kind of like a domino effect. You have to find one to find the other. So 52 plus 52 is 104. Subtract 104 from 180. 76. So X equals 76. So when two sides are equal, that's an isosceles triangle, and that means two angles are congruent. And this should be the last one, I think. Kareem wants to measure the width of a river. He marks off two right triangles as shown in the figure. The base of the larger triangle has a length of 62. So this was the base. And the base of the smaller one is 33 meters. So this is also the base. The height of the smaller triangle is 15.9. So find the height or width of the river. So we're going to set up a proportion. I'm going to have the smaller triangle on the left and the larger one on the right. Now I'm going to put the base over the height on both. So the base of the small one is 33 over its height is 15.9. The base of the larger one is 62 over its height, we'll call X. And if you remember, when we did this not too long ago, we used cross products. So 33x equals 62 times 15.9, which is 985.8. Divide both sides by a 33. says round to the nearest meter in the directions, so that rounds to approximately 30. Let me just check that was the end. Yep. Okay, so use these notes as you're doing your final, especially for the formulas, and try your best. All right, email me if you have any questions. Good luck.